Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game from the CrunchLab Masters in 2024 that's going on now on chess.com. We have here Magnus Carlsen against Wesley, so from the losers bracket of this beautiful chess event. The losers bracket is of course the bracket when you lose a match, then of course you fall down, but then you can get back in the tournament if you continue to win your game. So I think it's a really interesting setup. It's a different of course setup than we usually see, but I think it's really great because sometimes you lose and then maybe you can still win the event if you win all of your games till the end. So we're following now Magnus Carlsen against Wesley. So the game that I will show you now is actually the Armageddon game. The first two games they played ended with a draw. Magnus Carlsen had 10 minutes on the clock, and Wesley so had only 7 minutes on the clock, but of course White needs to win the game. If now Magnus plays a draw or loses the game, he is out of the event. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Magnus opened with the move e4. Wesley's response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5. We can have the Giuoco piano. Pretty symmetrical stuff here. After kingside castling, knight to f6, d3, protecting the pawn, and now after move d6, you see we have almost a perfect symmetry. But now here after move d6, Magnus doesn't play the perfect symmetry. Plays now the move c3 with ideas to break and enter with the move d4 or maybe with the move b4, a5, preventing b4 for a while. We have rook to e1 by Magnus, kingside castling, and now h3, not allowing of course some dangerous stuff with bishop to g4. Then of course you could be vulnerable here around the square d4 if something breaks here in the center of the board. Then the knight could be overloaded here because it's hard then to get your bishop back into the defense. So the h3 prophylactic idea by Magnus. Here Wesley does the same, also prevents in some lines bishop to g5 by Magnus Carlsen. Bishop to b3, bishop to e6, competing now against this powerful bishop of Magnus, but now Magnus retreats and still keeps now this bishop connected to the e4 pawn. It is trying of course to break and enter with the move d4. We have bishop to a7, knight from b to d2, normal development, and now d5. I think the best way here for black to proceed, because we have to notice in this particular moment, okay, Magnus rerouted his pieces a little bit, but now with the move d5 you're breaking and entering, and white's pieces are a little bit cramped here. They're not of course in optimal shape. The light square bishop is blocked out by its own pawn, and also the dark square bishop blocked out by its own knight. That's why good choice here by Wesley to break the position. A takes d5, queen to d5, queen comes out with the tempo, and now the e5 pawn is also protected twice by the knight and the queen. We have queen to e2. Magnus puts more pressure against the e5 pawn, and now Wesley plays a beautiful move, a rook to e8, which is I think a beautiful tactical defensive approach here by Wesley, not allowing this pawn to be taken, because if you try knight to e5, notice that white doesn't have any more the rook connection because you didn't develop your minor pieces. That's the issue here. And now for something like knight to e5, queen to e5, there is this beautiful intermediate bishop to h3. You pick up now the queen, but now you lose the rook on the e file. You have to step back here. Of course black can still recapture the queen. You can of course get the bishop, but I think we can agree game over here for white. Black would be up the exchange, has now also this pin against this bishop here on the first rank. Game over here for white for sure. So after rook to e8, that's why Magnus again is rerouting some pieces, searches of course for better squares, and is finally breathing, I would say, because now he can also finally develop his dark square bishop. Rook from a to d8, perfect setup here for Wesley. So played an awesome opening theory so far. Knight to g3 by Magnus, and I would say here pretty equal position now for both sides. We have now b4, which is a theoretical novelty. Surprisingly, for instance, this position has been played already in one game that was played in 2021 between Daniel Pyramid against Matteo Troia. Here in this other game, queen to b5 was black's continuation, but here Wesley so immediately breaks and enters here, puts more pressure on the flanks. I think also solid approach with opportunities to play b4, a4 to do something here against this through pawn. It's really sort of a minority attack that here Wesley so is trying on the queen side. We have now bishop to e3. Magnus doesn't want to tolerate this annoying bishop on a7. Bishop to e3, queen to e3, and now I think comes already the critical moment of the game. Of course, Wesley so had really not so much much time on the clock. He started with 3 minutes less than Magnus Carlsen, but now Wesley made, I think, a mistake that is not, I would say, losing or something immediately, but you see now how Magnus is really a great player, how he punishes this tiny little inaccuracies, this tiny little deviations maybe from the optimal lines. Here the best way is simply to proceed with queen to d6. Again, you cannot take here with the move knight to e5. There are again some tactics here on the e file, so it's really hard here to compete also for white. Somehow you have also weak d3 pawn in some lines. If something clears, you have also the weak a2 pawn. Then after something like queen to d6, that would be the optimal way here to proceed for Wesley. Then maybe knight to e4 can be played by white, but look at this. After knight to e4, d takes e4, and actually in this line, maybe I would even dare to say black should be even slightly better because of maybe the better bishop's activity. The bishop on e6, I think, is stronger, crossing all over the board than maybe Magnus Carlsen's bishop on c2, if Wesley, of course, would have played this line. This bishop on c2 is a little bit paralyzed by its own pawn. On the other hand, I think black's light square bishop can, of course, attack something also. As I mentioned, the a2 pawn is weak, so this would be the optimal way to proceed. But here, Wesley played an unnecessary bishop to c8, and many of us, I think, would even play this move because you still have your rook connection, you're still keeping yourself active, you're still having a good control of the e5 score. Seems logical, but now Magnus shows really his great attacking skills, his really also great positional understanding. Now he plays knight to e4, the move that we have seen previously, but now after knight to e4, great tactics actually here by Magnus. D takes e4, he pushes now the queen away. If the queen would have been already on d6, then Magnus Carlsen would not gain an extra tempo against the queen. So now what should you do? If you try here queen to e6 to maybe retreat with the queen, then this queen is coming into the game, and b5 weak. Knight is very loose, then the queen is always connected to the knight. Also the a5, I would say, is weak, so you can also maybe in some lines compete on the d file then to play bishop to d3. So after d takes e4, that's why queen to d6 by Wesley. He's protecting now his c5 square, but now Magnus gets an extra tempo, and losing a tempo against Magnus Carlsen is really is almost a suicide, because look how Magnus continues now the attacking flow. Queen to e7, competing again for the c5 score. Again, Wesley should not allow Magnus Carlsen to get here, and now Magnus continues with rook to d5. If you take, of course, then e takes d5, deflects the knight from the defense, and then you could lose also the pawn on e5. So that's why after rook to d5, we have now b4 by Wesley. So, but now another beautiful follow-up, bishop to a4. You see, with every move, Magnus is creating a simple threat, pins now the knight to the rook here. We have to protect it now, and now you see the piece that we have seen previously could have been maybe the best minor piece of blacks on the board, suddenly becomes only a defender of the knight on c6. Now here Magnus simply takes, and look at this, the position is collapsing because of this beautiful attacking flow that Magnus created. First of all, picking up this pawn, queen to d6, now finally queen to c5. Several draw square problems that Wesley so has to take care of here. B takes c3, Magnus of course takes, but keeps now the pressure also against the e5 pawn. You could maybe try here bishop to a8. This wasn't playing the game, but still I would say, I don't know, rook to c5. Look at this again, this one is weak, this one is weak. You're trying, I don't know, a rook to maybe f6 or rook to d7 to protect it. Then look at this, rook to c7. I would even dare to say game over immediately. White creates, of course, two connected passers. Not a good continuation. But here Wesley try f6, makes also sense because now you're finally protecting it. But now Magnus continues here the attack on the c file. The bishop is simply loose now. Here Wesley has to play a strange move, e6, but now a beautiful continuation here by Magnus. b4, simply of course pushing the pawns on the queen side. Rook to b8, knight to h4, great move here, the best move, simply going for the weak f5 square. King to h7, knight to f5 comes with the tempo, queen drops back, and now another beautiful move here by Magnus, a4. If you take here, then of course you're getting destroyed on the 7th rank. You maybe try this one, but now you lose also this one. We can of course play rook to g6. Both of these pawns will be lost. Maybe white will lose this one, but I think if we grab now both of these pawns, then black is continuing the game with 3 extra pawns. I think in a we can agree that again it's game over here for black. After move a4, that's why Wesley tried rook to c8, but now b5, and now Magnus simply pushed the pawn further, rook to e8, and now f3, keeping everything compact, keeping everything solid here on the king side. c6, Magnus is passing through, of course, has now two connected pass pawns which are basically unstoppable, so the bishop is locked. Really look how with one move in the beginning that Wesley played with bishop to c8, he simply locked out his bishop through the whole game, and such a great positional player like Magnus Carlsen punishes that, of course, for sure. So that's why for b6, bishop to b7, but now queen to b3, trying of course also to compete now on the d file, because I think the only way maybe for black to do something is somehow maybe get the queen on the second rank, maybe also one of those rooks, because white has lost now the rook connection on the first rank. But you see now after rook to d8, Magnus improves every positional problem that he has. He doesn't want to tolerate any activities by black now in the game c5, but now rook from e to d1, attacking now the queen. Wesley plays a counter attack, but Magnus simply takes, c takes b3, and now again Magnus played first of all rook takes g7, and now rook to b1. What should you do? If you try to hold this position, maybe with rook to c3, if you're trying maybe to hold your pawn, which seems dangerous, maybe you could try, I don't know, after rook to b7 to include also this rook into the game and maybe start to push the pawn, trying to promote it. It's actually not working, because after check and b7, there is always a threat maybe to deliver check, and then the promotion again would come with a tempo, so it's not working. So after rook to b1, that's why Wesley tried bishop to a6, rook takes b3, and here it's obviously game over. Rook to c2, rook to c7, rook to a2, and now after move b7, rook to g8, and now knight to e3. Again, a beautiful move by Magnus, protecting simply his weakness, and now this one is unstoppable in this particular position. Wesley so resigned. So Magnus Carlsen won the Armageddon game, kept himself in the event, really under pressure. Magnus showed his best chess, almost without inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. Magnus played now the game, really perfection in only a 10-minute game. Really spectacular, I think, attacking flow in the middle game stage that Magnus Carlsen realized. Great game, and he is now in the tournament. And still, I would dare to say, Magnus is always the favorite to win everything, although he lost yesterday his match against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is playing awesome chess in this event. He outplayed also Alireza Firouzja today, so Maxime is on fire. So maybe we'll get maybe a sort of Magnus Carlsen Maxime grand final. I'm hoping for it, because these two players, I think, impressed me the most so far. So okay, if you want to see some other games that we have analyzed from this event, here are some games, here are some links of some games that we have covered. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.